Hey guys, welcome back. Hope you're all doing awesome today. And it's time for more Entitled People stories. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and let's begin. Refuse my mother entry to your horse track? Don't expect access to our personal road. My granddad used to own a piece of land next to a horse racetrack. Their land almost surrounded my granddad's, except for him having access to a heavily trafficated public road. The racetrack was laid out in such a way that their racetrack was placed north of my granddad's land, while the main track with the stadium was placed to the south. Way back when the racetrack was built, they had asked my granddad if they could transport their horses across his land. There was already a maintenance road in place, and as they only moved their horses, he didn't really mind, as they also supported the local village. As a small thank you for this, they allowed him and his guests to watch the races for free. Normally it costs around 5 USD in our local currency. Not that much, but it allowed him to take me and all my cousins to watch the horses for free. Anyhow, fast forward a couple of years and my granddad passed away. My mother, who inherited the land, tried to bring her grandchild, my niece, to the racetrack to see the horses just as my granddad used to. At the counter, she is told that she has to pay for admission. Not really that big of a deal, as she thought that they didn't know that she now owned the land. Afterwards, however, when she writes to the track to rectify the situation, they tell her that she won't be admission free, as it was a one-time deal they had struck with my granddad that now was off. A few months later, when we had planned to cut down some of the trees for lumber, my mother told the contractors to accidentally leave 1 or 2 logs across the maintenance road. The racetrack, now having to load their horses on trolleys as they had to use the busy public road instead of our maintenance one, almost immediately sent an email to my mother apologizing and offering her that same deal as my granddad had received, if we would remove the logs. She only informed them that the one-time deal they had struck with my granddad was off. In the end, after some wrangling, we ended up with the deal where they now have to pay my mother around 400 USD every month, in addition to her and her guests having free admission. It was actually a good thing for you guys that they initially denied her, because that first agreement with your granddad was honestly a pretty crappy deal for you guys. Free tickets to their horse races to be allowed to use your property? Yeah, that was a ripoff to begin with. Teacher lost it. So my best friend loves every time I tell this story, so I thought I would share it with all of you. In high school, I had an AP English teacher who was very opinionated in her grading. If she loved a book the class had to read and you didn't get a good grade on your report when you turned it in. I was an avid reader. In fact, I cleaned out my school library in 3rd grade. So let's just say I wasn't a fan of her literary selections. She was also the kind of teacher that thought her class was the most important one you had. Due to this, the workload was quite substantial. Coming up on our final exam, she gave the class a talk 1 week before the final. She would be weighting our grade for the semester, giving 60% of it to the final. She explained she was preparing us for college. However, since she was giving so much weight to the final, she would give us an opportunity to earn extra credit. For every 4 lines of the epic poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, you could memorize and write verbatim on the back of the test, you would receive 1 point of extra credit. I had a rough year due to her grading style, so I was getting a B in the class at the time. However, this was my moment to shine. I have a knack for remembering things. In fact, as a freshman, I learned all the lines for the lead role of Neil Simon's Rumors 2 hours before opening night, due to the lead dropping out. I then performed the role for 3 nights without dropping a line, so this opportunity seemed made for me, and I wasn't going to let it pass by. I got home and looked up the poem. It was well over 400 lines. I got to work. The final exam finally came. I sat down confidently in my seat and eagerly waited to receive my test. We received our 15-page final and were told we had 3.5 hours to complete it. I put my name at the top and immediately flipped it over to the back. For the next 8 minutes, I ravenously wrote out 400 straight lines from the epic poem verbatim. That step complete, I decided to look at the questions she intended for us to answer. It was filled with multiple choice essays and fill-in-the-blank questions. I took a few minutes to fill in the blanks I knew, guessed at the multiple choice ones I didn't know, and completely ignored her biased essays. Now for the fun part. After a grueling 15 minutes total into the 3.5-hour final, I walked triumphantly to the teacher's desk. I flipped the test on her desk and said, "Have a great summer." She said, "Very funny, it's a 3.5-hour final. Sit down and finish your test." I responded, No, I'm finished. I got over 100%. She said, let me see your paper. She looked through my test. She saw the empty essays and empty fill-in-the-blanks. Now even more annoyed with me, she said, you haven't answered half of these. It's a 3.5-hour final. Sit down and finish your test. I wouldn't be denied. I said, no, I'm finished. I got over 100%. At this point, she is getting very upset, and her color in her face is starting to shift. How do you think you have over 100% when you haven't done half the test? She demanded. With a big smile, I said, look at the back. You said for every 4 lines of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner we memorized and wrote on the back, we would get 1 point of extra credit. You will notice I have written 400 lines from the poem. By my math, that equals 100% of extra credit. Anything I answered in this nonsense is gravy, so I got over 100%. She turned beet red. Her knuckles were white, holding my paper, and she stared at me with hate in her eyes. I said, have a great summer, as I walked out, feeling like I had just dropped Mike Tyson with a single blow. I got an A in the class. My final was 145% out of 100. Am I the a-hole for begging my girlfriend to uphold a sexist tradition just so she can make a good first impression? I have a big family that's incredibly close. We have big family dinners every few months, where we all meet at my great-grandfather's estate and eat together. Typically, how this works is that the women go cook for the time they're there, and the men don't, which I am fully aware is sexist as hell. That being said, I am one of the youngest people in my family, and my protests mean literally nothing. Some of those women choose not to cook. However, this is usually met with the level of ostracizing. The women who don't cook are wives and long-term girlfriends, so they kinda already have a good family relationship doctored in. When I have seen new partners not cook, it's gone bad. Like completely ostracized, not speaking, cattiness, rudeness, etc. This dinner will be in 2 weeks, and my girlfriend was asked if she would attend. Initially, she said yes, which is great. I want for her to meet everyone and for everyone to get used to her being around. But when I explained to her the tradition, she was understandably bothered. I told her that I understood where she was coming from. However, it was best for everyone if she just played along. I told her this isn't a permanent thing, and that I am only asking her to do this so that she can avoid bad treatment from the rest of the family. This is her first impression, and I don't think it's best if we cause waves. She told me that it's unacceptable, and that if she has to do that, she will not be going. I've tried to find a compromise with her on this, but she won't budge and she's pissed at me. She told me that if I think it's acceptable to make her do this, I'm just as bad as everyone else, while my point is that she needs to make a good first impression. Am I the a-hole? I think whether or not OP is being an a-hole kinda depends on how he decides to proceed with this. He says he's aware it's very sexist, which it is, obviously. But the fact that he's here asking shows that he's having second thoughts about making his girlfriend do this. And if OP's girlfriend doesn't want to participate, then she should absolutely not participate. If I were in her shoes, I sure as hell would just not go at all. OP says to just go along with it once to make a good first impression, but I feel like if she did that, she would just be giving in and playing her expected role of being a subservient maid. Imagine going to a significant other's family dinner for the first time, and because you're a woman, you're expected to cook. As a guest. I sure as hell would just not go, and if OP's girlfriend doesn't want to do it, then she shouldn't. Entitled Mother tried to kidnap me as a baby. As the title says, this happened to me when I was a baby. I actually wasn't aware of this until my brother mentioned it, and boy, did my mom have a story to explain. When I was apparently a few months old, my grandmother on my mom's side, before she passed away from cancer, had taken myself, my brother, 7, and older half-sister, 9, to a park while my parents were at work. My grandma had put me in a baby swing, keeping an almost constant eye on me because I was born a preemie, and thus even a few months old, still a little fragile, and needed a bit more attention. From what my mom had to explain, my older siblings had gotten into another fight. One had pushed the other and it led to a brawl, and grandma had to stop them. Because last time they had really gotten into it and one got a bloodied nose, and the other had a sprained wrist. I cannot remember who got what, but I know that they do love each other. So for 1 minute I was left unattended as my grandma went to keep my siblings from hurting each other, when apparently this stupid lady, who already had a kid, a 2-year-old girl, decided that I was abandoned. Entitled Concerned Mother saw me left in the swing, not noticing grandma breaking up the fight, and literally walks over, picks me up, and just walks away. The 2-year-old was strapped in a sling thing on her back. I don't remember what they're called, by the way, and apparently sleeping from what I was told. Remember, this is from word of mouth. I was 3 months old when this happened. Of course, a minute later, Grandma turns around, sees me gone, and flips out. She started screaming that her grandbaby had been kidnapped. Thankfully, an officer was there and quickly took stock of the situation. A small search went out, but they didn't have to look far. Even 3 months, I was apparently very vocal about things I didn't like, and that included being changed into non-soft clothes. I have been very sensitive about certain fabrics. Even at a young age, I would scream if I wasn't put in something soft. So it didn't take long for the officer to find me. Apparently, I had only been taken about 100 yards away to a bench, where the entitled mother tried to change me and throw out my old clothes. Long story short, she tried to claim that I was her baby, and that I was merely fussy. Problem: I look nothing like her. Difference in ancestry and race, and the fact that I was wearing a special bracelet that has my name on it. So she got arrested. Her daughter returned to her father. Turned out the father had a restraining order and the entitled mother had kidnapped her daughter. And my grandma charged the lady, which was how they met the father of the 2-year-old, and the trial was where they learned of the mother's reasonings. To say the least, we won. I was safely returned to my family, and I have no clue what happened to the lady who tried to take me as her baby because I was abandoned. And honestly, I wish I knew more, but my mom wouldn't say more, which kinda scares me. But since I can get paranoid, maybe it's for the best. I'm safe, and that's what matters. Edit. Just want to emphasize, I do not have the full story. Mom omitted some bits, and I know that there was something she's not telling me. So again, I don't have the full story. And that's all for today. Thank you for watching. Be sure to drop a like, I'd really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more. So take care, I'll see you next time.